I found this display cannon at a yard sale, and it was missing the cap on the back. So when you stand it up, it stays down. It doesn't assume the firing position. And this one doesn't really fire, it's just used for display. And I'm not sure what kind of patina it has, but it does discolor my fingers. So I found a pipe end cap to go here, but the thread was different. So what I ended up doing is having to sand the interior, and I didn't really do this by hand. I used a sanding drum clamped in a vise. And now it slips over, so it's, it's not going to stay put if I had put it there, but I'll show you what to do. I also drilled a hole right here to run the wire, and in the back to run the turn switch. Now this is the turn switch, and it came with a nut and a couple of these crinkled washers to keep this from moving around, and a candelabra base. Now this candelabra base, I'll put it here so you guys can see it. It's the right size to fit the turn switch. I may have to trim the wires to fit in this housing. And then I found these really cool, they're called corn lights. And they're LEDs just in a long stretch. And this is like a silicone, but this one I tightened too much and broke it. So that's one thing you have to be careful. I did order some more from a different seller, and they turned out to be a shorter version, so I had to reorder one with 152 LEDs, so when I get it, I'll switch them out. And one thing I did was I took some sheet aluminum and made a little reflector. I made sure it's going to fit here, not mess up, and I made it to where it will screw on the light. It's a little tricky, and you don't want to break this like I broke the other one. Of course, I didn't know the other ones will break. So this will basically fix this way, and hopefully it's making contact. Okay. And one thing you don't want to do is just get any regular old LED for a nightlight, because these are just too fat. It goes in, but it won't go in far enough when you put this in there, because the barrel of the cannon tapers down. Now come out. Okay. So let me go ahead and rig this up with the electrical wire. I went ahead and cut the ends there and detached the plug into the wall. And I have some rubbing alcohol on a tissue. So I'm going to clean the inside to make sure there is no dust. And you can see how much dust was in there. Wow. So you don't want that sitting in there, because the way I'm going to rig this up, I want to make sure that it's so clean so it works properly. Now to rig this up, oh yuck. To rig this up, I took a strip of self-adhesive foam padding and I cut it to fit in there, but if you notice, it is just a little bit too long. And the reason being is when you peel the strip, it should be just right. So you want to make this, stuck perfectly flush with the edge of this pipe end cap. So this stretches a little bit when you put it in there, so I'm still going to have to cut a little bit, but rather than use some shears, I'm going to just use a box cutter, and if I can reach it in there, yeah, and just slice. Okay. Perfect. So now this is in there, and as you can see, when I screw it in, it's going to be really tight, which is nice. If not, I can always sand some more, but it took me hours just to sand that loose. But you see, it looks like it will work. It's starting to take shape, so that's good. And I hope when I replace the bulb, it's not going to mess things up. But this aluminum, as you can see, it only goes to there. And this, nope, it does fit further, okay. And I basically put this as a slight reflector to help reflect. Okay, so now as you can see, this is really long, and I do need to pull these wires out of there. And wiring this is going to be a little bit tricky. You know, I have the electrical cord, the cord coming out of the candelabra base, and the switch, which all have to be wired and in here. You know, they have to fit in that tiny area. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, okay, I'm going to stick this in there and run this through here. Did I drill the hole too small? I thought I tested this, but apparently I drilled the hole a little bit too small. So I'll have to re-drill this hole. So I was fortunate that I was able to run the same drill bit through here with oil and widen this because it wasn't too tight. And now, as you can see, the switch fits. So what I need to do next is take the switch. Okay, I got this tightened and now this turns. And I have a bunch of wires. I may have to trim these just so it can fit in this encasing. And I'll have to run the electric wire through this hole right here and use some heat shrink. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to assemble this and test it out. Okay, so I have the electrical wire run through, and I cut these short enough so I won't have too many wires when I try to put this in there. And now I'm going to go ahead and heat shrink them. So I cut some that's a little bit larger in diameter, and I'm going to have them a little bit above the wire, but make sure, you know, they're long enough to cover both wires. Okay, like that. You don't want it sticking out just so it, you know, will shrink and be really tight. And now let's go ahead and shrink those. What you want to do is just have these organized such that they should be able to fit in there, but I'd like to get them tucked in there if I can. I'm going to use some needle nose pliers just to, you know, with them closed, just to have something to push in. You know, past the self-adhesive foam padding. Okay. Now, this thing's useless, so I'm not going to use this reflector. I'm just going to, who cares if I scratch it type deal. There we go. Okay, let's see if it works. Wow, and look how bright that is. Nifty. Okay, so now let me go ahead and put this in there. I'm going to have to do it vertically because of this wire, and then we're going to test it out. So let me just do this off camera. Okay, I put this in and making sure it's horizontal, and that turns on. So now let us test it out. Okay, I have the lights off in the room, but you can still see the Canon. And I just want to show you how it's just illuminating through. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.